Hello, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming to our budget workshop here. Since our Madam Clerk isn't here, I will note that we have two excused absences, Councillor Clement and Councillor Scott. If the three of you could introduce yourselves and then please proceed.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council, good evening. Heather Hunter, City Administrator for the City of Lewiston.
Tracy Rory, Finance Director for City of Lewiston.
And David St. Pierre, Chief of Police for the City of Lewiston.
We're going to start with Police Administration on page 52. Overall increase of $47,460 or 8.1%. The Personal Services increased $41,675. These are changes due to union adjustments and COLAs. Contracted Services had an increase of $13,934. The increase in Civil Services for $8,500 because of its testing this year. An increase in the accreditation services due to the registration and travel of the CALEA conference, which is the Communications Assistant of Law Enforcement Act, passed in 1994. The offset by the decrease in repairs and equipment of $600 due to the photocopy and maintenance agreement being budgeted in MIS starting this fiscal year of 2024, as I mentioned in the other departments. Supplies increased at 402, the increase of 702 in gas due to the cost of the gas offset by a decrease of the tire and tubes at $300 due to no tires being needed in two of the vehicles. Fixed cost decreased $8,551. The decrease is in the liability coverage due to the police liability less than the projected in fiscal year 2023, so we're estimating a 3% increase from this current year. Are there any questions in Police Administration? On to Criminal Investigation Division, which is page 52. Personal Services increased $603,618. In regular wages, $579,942. For steps and two patrol officers transferring from patrol to criminal investigations. There were 24 budgeted last year. There'll be 26 budgeted in this budget this year. Overtime, $23,676 due to on-call pay. Contracted services decreased $900. There was an increase in repairs and vehicles, $400 for outside repairs. A decrease in printing services of $120. Business cards being budgeted under Support Service Division this year for fiscal year 24, whereas it was budgeted in this department last year, or this current year. Miscellaneous services decreased $560 for the reduction in the translation service and the credit reports. A decrease in service training of $620 due to turnover and promotions. Supplies increased $3,170, an increase in the gas at $1,890 due to the cost of the gas increase going up. Increase in department apparel of $1,800 for two lateral transferred positions from patrol. A decrease of $520 in tires and tubes to budget closer to the actual expenditures. Fixed cost increased $160. This increase is due to the dues for the polygraph examiner license, which is every 4 years. And that's the CID department. Any questions on that?
Councillor Jelinas?
Thank you. So, and maybe this is a question for the Chief of Police. The second line item, the overtime increased at 30.9. I look at the actual for 2022, look at 2023, and then the request here. I guess I'm wondering about the increased police force. Is that going to, positively impact?
The increase for wages, including overtime, are because our wages are higher. And we still have to cover, for our detectives, they have to cover their on-call. Contractually, they have a 10-hour on-call period.
Okay.
So the week that they're on call, they get 10 hours built in of overtime that week.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor LaChapelle?
Thank you. Just to follow up on Councilor Jelinas' statement, I'm seeing overtime at the next line down. With a full force, I'm assuming that's going to take a large cut in the overtime, forced overtime, for the department, would it not?
You're asking, because we're better staffed, it should
Yes.
reduce the overtime?
So
Yes,
you're-
absolutely.
You're not, 'cause-
Yeah.
so, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but we still get a $200,000, almost a $200,000 increase under patrol from 537 to 710, or 738, 537 to 738. It's a $200,000 increase. If we have a full complement, I know there's going to be overtime when stuff happens, but I would imagine that was going to cut down drastically.
Absolutely, I would anticipate that. Perhaps City Administrator Hunter will have a little bit further on that.
The one thing that you will hear, and I believe it's coming up on April 6th, is the in-kind donation and requests for the various events and things like that. When the council approves those in-kind services, we still have to pay the officers.
But we still had that last year.
Right.
And we had
But you
less
have higher
people.
wages too.
Correct.
Okay. $200,000 worth of?
Not
hiring?
all of it, but we'll look at that again.
I'm just, I think the council really stepped forward and said, we want the best, we want it, we want to cut down the overtime. We've hawked on the fire department for overtime, now it's coming down to the police department. We've given you the staff. I think we really need to look at that overtime situation, and every $100,000 counts in a budget that's this tight. And if it means that we have to hire another officer, get another officer. Let's stop paying that overtime. I think Auburn has like 3 more officers left that we can.
I'm going to hold that comment for another week, maybe. and then-
Councilors, thank you. Sorry, Administrator Hunter, were you?
No,
gonna-
it's just to Councilor LaChapelle's point. I think I said this early on during the budget presentation, but it's worth repeating. Every penny on the tax rate is worth $22,145. So that's what you're thinking when you're thinking cuts. So $500, doesn't get us anywhere. So that's kind of, even if we look at, because I've done the exercise in prior years, look at all the $50, $100 items, and yes, they can add up to 200 adjustments, but it's not even a penny on the tax rate.
Correct, but if we cut from $700,000
No
down
doubt
to
about it.
$400,000, that's a $300,000
Yes.
difference. And we take it from that department, and there's another overtime, before you know it, you're at $1 million, $2 million, and that's just,
Understood.
okay, thank you.
We're sort of jumping around here in the police budget, but any more questions about criminal investigations? Okay.
So next
Please
we'll go
proceed.
over patrol, which is on page 53. Overall increase of $1,538,003, or 33%. Personal services increased $1,473,169. The increase in regular wages was $1,280,169. These are due to step tables changing and the remaining, to remain competitive to recruit the patrol officers. A $173,000 increase in overtime. This is due to increases in the wages, of course, and more in-kind events such as like the Dempsey Challenge, Balloon Festival, Liberty Festival. And there also is those 2 frozen positions from last year that are in this budget. Contracted services increased $46,504. Decrease in printing services of $120. Again, they moved the business cards and are budgeted all of the business cards under the support service division. Decrease in repairs and equipment, $1,500. This is due to the repair of radio maintenance paid up front for 10 years. Decrease in service training, $5,016, due to new officers being at the level where they are coming in, that they don't need to go through the police academy, as Heather mentioned on the first night of the budget. Increase in repairs in vehicles, $5,300, due to the actual costs incurred in less outside detail. Miscellaneous services are increased for $47,840, for the 2 crisis workers. Current year, council funded both with a phased-in so that they could get the full year COLA and shift differential for fiscal year '23. Supplies increased at $18,330. Increase in gas at $23,900. This is due to the increase in the gas contract. An increase in public safety supplies, $3,562, for the increase in the training ammo by $1,450. Generator for the range of $1,000. Train and batons at $130, and other small increases on supplies. Increase in other supplies of $200 for a slight increase in the first aid supplies and the evidence supplies. These increases are offset by decreases in the tire and tubes, $2,300, for a reduction of new tires and balancing. Department apparel reduction of $6,400 due to the 2 police officers in patrol moving over to the CID division, and vest carriers for new officers. Decrease in educational supplies, $632. This increase is in price for the supplies, but decrease in quantity from 22 of this current year to 10 in the fiscal year '24. Capital requested, as you can see on the fund balance that Heather went over the first night, they're requesting 3 mid-size SUVs, 1 full-size SUV, 3 siren and light control boxes, cargo box, and transport seats. So that's patrol. Does anybody have any questions on that? So we'll move,
I-
oh, sorry.
Yes, I guess my question, since we were talking about overtime for patrol, would it be possible to, I understand that as wages rise, the overall number rises, but could we get, perhaps the hour difference that we were expecting from last budget year to this year?
Yep.
Like actual hours worked, just to, kind of have as a frame of reference. And then the other question I had, so we have overtime wages for first, second, and third shift. What is the 8,871 at the top there?
That just didn't get allocated to one of the shifts.
Oh, okay. Further questions from the council?
So next we'll do support service division, which is on page 53 in the top of 54. Overall increase of $45,310, or 6.7%. Personal services increased at $43,431. The increase is in all wages due to steps. Same count as last year. There are 10 employees in this division. Contracted services increase of $1,879. An increase in printing services, $1,925, due to the parking ticket prices increasing and the reallocation of the business cards that I mentioned in the other 2 departments are now budgeted in this department. Maintenance license of $210, with a slight increase of cost in the Microsoft licenses of $60 and the RSA tokens at $150. Decrease in postage of $156 due to the decrease in the UPS mail-ins that the police department will be doing. Repairs and equipments decrease in $100. This is due to the maintenance photocopiers being budgeted in MIS, along with an increase a little bit for the shredder. Supplies remain flat this year, and so does the fixed cost. Any questions on the support service division? We'll move to the police building, which is on page 54. The overall increase of $24,488, or 19.4%. Personal services increased slightly at $262. These are charges from the Public Works building maintenance. Contracted services increased $24,226. The increase is in utilities, electrical, and heat of $20,944. Cleaning services slightly at $24. Increase in repairs and buildings, $3,258, due to the overhead door and locks at $1,300. monthly elevator inspections of 156 and paint at 200, and other small increases in other building inspections. Supplies remain flat, and fixed costs remain flat. Any questions on police building?
When are we slated to be in the new police station?
If all goes right, our projected move-in date would be the beginning of January. I would suspect.
This next January?
Correct.
Right.
I would suspect they're going to be maybe perhaps a little bit later than that. Just, there's a lot of work that's taking place behind the scenes in many different realms. So we're in hopes to get in there at the beginning of January.
Councilor Herman?
Thank you. My question was, does this section of the budget cover the current building or the new one, or is it sort of a combination?
The current building,
The current building?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Councilor LaChapelle?
So if we're looking in January, shouldn't we be budgeting for the new facility into this budget? Because it runs from July to July, does it not?
Once they move in, because we have no history there, it's going to be a rough estimate at this point, so we're keeping it status quo. That building will then become mothballed and fall into the city-owned building category in Public Works.
But we're going to still have some increased prices, just electricity, heat,
Not a-
insurance.
It wouldn't be near what we're having now as if it was a staffed building. It's no different than what we're paying on Martel right now. It's the bare minimum at a mothball price.
Okay.
And the hope is to put that on the market as soon as we switch over and have the council decide how they want to dispose of that building.
Thank you.
Councilor Pease?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to make a couple of statements, and one of them is, I'm looking at this budget for the police department, and there are quite a few line items. But I did notice that out of that, there's like 13, 14 line items that are all negatives. They're all deductions. They really worked hard to try to keep this budget down, and I appreciate that. You take like just gas and oil supply, that's $25,000. It's no chump change here, They have no control over that. Utilities, those are all fixed costs. They have no control. We have no control. I think that I would like to say that this department I'm very proud of, and I think that they go up over and above everything that the police department normally would do. They're concerned about the taxpayer. They're concerned about the well-being of everybody, and I want to thank them personally.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Councilor McCarthy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only comment is looking at repairs to the building. Is there anything that we're looking at 6 months? Can anything just be pushed off? Because the reality is that building will probably be torn down. So is there anything that are going to be taken out of the repairs to the building to save some money? Because they're only going to be in there for 6 months, and then it's...
We did whittle it down. We can definitely go through the detail again. I mean, unfortunately, we're required by the state to still do elevator inspections while we're in there.
That falls into the repairs?
All of that stuff falls in there.
So there is some mandatory stuff, whether it's 6 months or 6 weeks or a year, that we'd have to do if we were occupying the building?
Correct. But there
Okay.
may be some other maintenance that we can take another peek at.
Okay, great, thank you.
My only concern that, I understand we have a timeline of, perhaps moving in January. God forbid that was to be extended somehow, and then we had a building that was literally falling apart. I just wouldn't want to count our chickens before they hatch.
Next is Animal Control Officer, page 54. Public Personal Services increased $868. Contracted Services increased $1,761. This is from the Humane Society assessment budgeted at $1.42 in fiscal year '24, which is a slight increase from the current fiscal year at 1.3925. They charge rates per capita. Supplies increase $64, and this is all in gas, a slight increase. That's animal control. Any questions? So we'll move to the drug forfeiture, which is on page 55. Just a reminder, this is no tax-based fund. These monies are derived from prorated share of drug cases based upon local involvement. There are very specific criteria for expenses charged here and must be related to drug remediation. Typically very conservative on the revenue side, increase of $18,200 this year, with the ability to fund deficits through prior year surpluses. Fund balance is estimated to be $1,764,000 at the end of fiscal year '23. Personal services, no budget other than grant funded has picked up these other costs. Contracted services, a decrease of $4,500. In service training, a decrease of $2,500. Crisis negotiation and cell phone extract training was removed, and polygraph training was added. Test and service, decrease of $2,000 in drug confirmation testing. Supplies decreased $23,904. An increase in other supplies of $1,700. This is due to the honor guard uniform beginning to be replaced a few every year. And it's offset by a decrease in the public safety supply of $25,604. Last year, they had a vehicle cost for rental, which was converted, was covered by the federal government. So capital decreased $2,000. This is from the vehicles. Accessories will not be needed this year. They're going to be using reuse and assign from another detailed car. And that covers the drug enforcement account. Any questions?
Councillor LaChapelle?
Where's the revenue side for the parking tickets, meters, and all that stuff? Does that go into a separate account? Does it fall in the police department or general fund?
It's general fund, but not directly to the police department. It's part of the overall general fund revenues.
Okay, so we'll see it.
You'll see that when we cover the revenues.
Thank you.
Are we all set with police?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
We'll bring up the next chief.
Can't speak. Oh, I thought it was last year, this year. All right, then that number needs to be changed.
If you could please introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Mark Karen, I'm the fire chief.
So fire begins on page 56. Fire administration, overall increase of $9,866 or 3%. Personal services increased $10,959, all from wages for the steps for the 3 positions. Contracted services decreased $395, an increase in the postage of $100 for a slight increase in certified mail-in and property owner mail-in. Telephone increase of $650 for a slight increase in First Light. Maintenance and license, $455 for an increase in the MDT connection, which is the fire's portion of the 911 software. Decrease in repairs for vehicles, $1,100, due to the repairs for rust on 2 hoods done in the current year that is not needed in this budget. Decrease in repairs and equipment, $500, due to the maintenance contract for copiers being budgeted in the MIS department. Supplies, decrease of $268. In the individual apparel, $483, is an increase due to the cost of shirts, trousers, and shoes. The quantity is going up to 10, is going down, sorry, from 10 to 6, but the cost of the clothing is going up. A decrease in the office supplies of $50 due to less paper being ordered. Printing supplies, $225 due to a decrease in toners. A decrease in gas of $226 due to budget to actual numbers. Decrease in department apparel of $250, decrease due to items not needed for fiscal year 2024. Fixed cost decrease of $430, all in dues. International Fire Chiefs Association has been removed. The chief will not be attending, not intending to join the organization for fiscal year 2024. Firefighters are on page 56 and 57. Overall increase of $550,000, 903, or 7.6%. Personal services increased $506 and 840. Regular salaries, $543,340, are in steps, and additional 2 firefighters that were added in the budget. Currently in fiscal year 2023, there are 70 firefighters. In fiscal year 2024, and the budget is budgeted for 72. A decrease of $36,500 in overtime due to the 2 additional firefighters in this budget. They are estimating a less coverage for sick and workers' compensated needed to be covered. Contracted services, an increase of $13,925. An increase in repairs in vehicles, $6,425, due to the ladder certification for ladder number 1 and engine number 3. An annual Z-BART for the fire engine, which is an undercoating. Vehicle 416 repair and miscellaneous repairs. Increase in repairs and equipment for $2,500 due to equipment reduction from last year's budget. That was reduced during the final cut. He's re-putting it back to where it was before the cut. In-service training, $5,500 for promotional testing. A decrease in the medical services of $500 due to the decrease of new employees training. Supplies increased $30,138. An increase in gas at $8,833. Department and individual apparel totaling $20,955. This is an increase in cost of apparel, an increase in the clothing stipends for the 2 additional firefighters. Medical and lab supplies, increase of $350 due to the increase in valve and pocket mask and first aid kits. Public safety supplies, an increase of $3,000 for the purchase of hose, nozzle, valves, and an increase in per unit price. A decrease in tires and tubes of $3,000. Engine 7's tires are not needed to be replaced. They were just replaced currently this year. Fixed costs are flat, and capital operating is flat. Any questions on either of those 2 departments?
Can you remind us what organization the chief is not going to be part of, or what did you say earlier?
It's the International,
Fire Chiefs Association.
International Fire Chiefs Association.
And I guess, can we elaborate on that?
Well, I'm a member of the Maine Fire Chiefs Association. I feel it's a much greater benefit than the International Association of Fire Chiefs.
Fair enough. Thank you. Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. So I see that the overtime has gone down some, but it's still quite high there, even with the 2 additional personnel there. Is there anything else that can be done to reduce the overtime, or is that just how it goes?
Well, I can't predict the future. It is a conservative number. I did decrease it by 30,000, factoring in that we will hopefully get the 2 additional positions, but contractually they are getting a 5% wage increase, which will also increase the overtime number. I can tell you this year, currently, we are trending down. Actually, I did the numbers today, actually. Yeah, we're down like 30% year over year, which is a significant number.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a line item here that I was a little surprised on, and that was hydrant rental. What is that?
Want me to take that one?
would you?
So the Lewiston Water Department has to build a water system to cover or to have enough supply on hand to have water availability in all our hydrant systems. So because we have a hydrant system in our community, PUC requires us to charge the fire department for that additional capacity needed to operate that. So there's some pros and cons. The beauty of it is it goes back to our water department as a revenue. It also helps with all the homeowners and commercial building and line of credits for reduction or an increase, depending on which one, for the fire coverage because of that system that's in place. So it's a benefit to the taxpayers on their insurances.
Yeah, I just never realized that we had to do that. Now that I know, it makes a lot more sense.
Yes. So
Hey.
when water rates increase or decrease, that directly impacts that line item significantly.
So that's a good reason why we have to make sure that if we get too many false calls, that they get charged for it. I mean, we go out for nothing. That's costly. So,
We do have a fee structure for false alarms.
you know. Okay, thank you.
Set. Fire communications is on page 57. You'll see an overall increase of $568 or 0.7%. Personal services increased $840. Wages increased $1,140 and a decrease of overtime in $300. Contracted services decreased $600. In-service training was the full $600 for the air pack certification removed. Supplies increased $328, increase in gas for $178 due to increase in the gallons in the surcharge, and an increase in individual apparel of $150 for uniform and boot allowances. Fire prevention is also on page 57. Personal services increased $2,075, increase in wages of $1,575 for steps for 4 positions. Overtime, $500, increased due to the contract obligation. Contracted services increased $350 for printing services, $150 forms for carbon monoxide and tenements. Repairs to vehicles, $200 for the 2016 unit, 433 repair. Supplies increase of $1,300. Increase in gas, $350, increase in gallons from 1,000 to 1,150, and the surcharge gas increase. Increase in individual apparel at $450. Increase in public safety supplies of $500 for the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association Union Fire Code books. Fixed costs increased $140, all in dues for 3 inspectors. Fire station is on page 58. Overall increase of $39,518 or 27.8%. Contracted services increase of $38,518. Increases in utility of $26,255. Rise in cost is slightly increased in the fire station for Lisbon, Maine and Central, but estimated larger cost at the North Temple. Fuel supplies, $5,156. Natural gas is increasing. Outside rental, $1,450. Snowplow for new station. Repairs for building, $5,657 due to locksmith, hardware, building material, window, and door repairs. $14,000 is being funded out of the fund balance for the access door addition, and $4,000 for the central station painting and fire replacement of $10,000. Supplies increase of $1,000, all in household supplies, general price increase in all the products. Capital is through the fund balance that Heather mentioned on the first night. They're asking for a public safety equipment, which includes air compressors at the central fire station. And that is the fire department. Are there any questions on those two departments?
I would remind you, and the chief may be able to jump in, they did have one new program in service, and that's for the deputy fire chief.
Sorry,
It's okay.
I had it on there, I forgot.
Any other questions for the chief?
Councilor LaChapelle.
You have an opening for Mr. Willett when he left. Has that position been filled?
It has not been filled yet.
Okay, how many inspectors do you have?
2.
2? Now you're down to 1.
No, I'm sorry. We're budgeted for 3. We have 2.
You have 2.
I have 1 vacancy.
And their main responsibility, just inspecting any fire that goes through? What else do they do?
So they do a lot. They're fire inspectors / investigators, although our newest employee, the one that we hired before Inspector Willett retired, has not gone to fire investigation school. We're hoping to send him this year. So, but I did get some numbers for fire inspections. So for 2022, it looks like, remember, they did 453 inspections, 349 are complete, and then the rest needed follow-up. 77 needed follow-up, 27 are pending. That's out of a possible 1,152 3 or more unit buildings. Our program is designed, well, it's been revamped a little bit starting last year. On Mondays and Fridays, we would send the truck companies out to do tenement inspections. If the building passed, then that was fine, it passed. If it failed, it would be referred to the fire inspector. That third position was funded as part of the rental registration program. We traditionally had 2, part of rental registration, they funded a third fire inspector, just to primarily do tenement fire inspections. So, which he does, but he also picks up all of the violations from the truck companies do, because it's just much more efficient to have him do it where he works 5 days a week. He has a much more flexible schedule than the firefighters, instead of waiting till the next Monday or Friday that they're free to go out and do it. And it works well. Our numbers have gone up quite a bit to actually get inspections completed and to get compliance. We still have compliance issues, but the people who are compliant are fixing the problems, and they're working with us, and we're getting results in the inspection program. But that's beyond that. Beyond the inspections, they also do business licenses, they do citizen complaints, they do plans review for code enforcement, building projects, which is pretty time consuming.
How many calls per year does the fire department get?
Well, it varies year to year, but I would say probably around 2,500 fire calls, 25 to
2,500. Well, that was going to be my next question. How many are fires and how many are actual flames, smoke type thing?
I don't have that number with me, but I can get that for you.
And just like on average, do we go to 1 fire a month, 3 fires a month, 10 fires?
Well,
I know you're at every accident, so.
they went to 3 fires yesterday, but I mean, they might not go to another fire for 2 weeks. So I can't predict that. I would have to get that information for you. I don't have it with me.
Awesome. If I could get just how many calls that your trucks left the building, how many times for a call? Whether it's accident, anything, how many times did they leave that they were called out? So we know they go to accidents and.
Yeah, that number is in between 2,500 and 3,000 annually.
Okay.
Yeah, but as far as your question about actual
fires.
building fires, I would have to get that information for you.
Please, thank you. And do you feel that you're adequately staffed in the inspection area at 3? Should it be 4? Should it be 2? Where do you find you're staffed fine in the inspection department?
I think 3 is adequate.
Is adequate? Right, thank you.
Your request for a deputy chief, can you explain that to us?
Yeah, so we had a position of, it was titled battalion chief, and that in 2010 was eliminated through budget cuts. There were positions eliminated citywide, and that was one of them. It has not been brought back since, but that position would be the supervisor of the fire prevention division, as well as conducting some of the training oversight. I would like to bring that position back with the title of deputy chief, because that's what I have. That's the title I got through this last round of contract negotiations. And I would like it to be the supervisor of the fire prevention division. We traditionally have had someone in charge of that division. It's difficult to manage, with just myself and the assistant chief to manage the entire operation. We are the only 2 staff members. Other than that, they're all members of the bargaining unit. And I think it really needs that dedicated oversight to really grow the program and to give it some direction versus just, the work is getting done and they do a good job. I'm not saying that they don't. But to really move that program forward, it really needs someone who can give it the dedicated supervision that it needs. And it's just 2 people cannot manage all of that work. It's too much. Because it's also the fire training, the records management, the compliance issues that we have to keep track of. And aside from budgeting, planning, and all of that other work, it's a lot of work for 2 people. So I would like to get that 3rd position back.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor LaChapelle?
How many people would this new deputy chief be overseeing?
Well, he would help us out with the overall management of the fire department, but his day-to-day core responsibility would be to manage the 3 fire inspectors and the clerk.
Okay, so there'd be the 4 people in that department. Now, you have 72 officers, or 72 firefighters, I think.
Well, we have 70, but we're
70 currently.
currently, but
72
Budgeted for 72? Or you're looking?
we're hoping to get 2 more next fiscal year.
Okay, so we're at 70, we're trying to get 72. Okay.
So just to clarify those 2, one of the things that we're looking at, and the chief did an analysis on being able to look at replacement personnel. So they're called our men. And that allows you to kind of, think of it kind of like a substitute teacher. If somebody's not there, they can go in and fill for that scheduled time rather than hiring at an overtime. So the benefit is there to reduce the overtime wage.
It's like a floater firefighter, so to
Correct.
speak.
And how many firefighters on a truck?
So there's 3 on an engine, and the ladder has 4. So we have 17 firefighters on duty daily.
17. Now, I'm going to ask that same question that I asked for Paul Let's situation. Is that enough men, firefighters? Not enough? Too many? What does that look like? And this might be a tough situation to answer in.
Yeah, I think our current operation, I think it's adequate staffing. I'm comfortable with it. I would not recommend reducing it. And I don't really want to recommend increasing it right now.
Neither do I, but that's.
Yeah.
And when you come back with those statistics, how many times in the last year has firefighters gone into a burning building or a smoking building? What do those stats look like also?
Yeah, I would have to get you that number. I don't have that
I
with
don't
me.
expect it off the top of your head.
Right, so that would just go back to your earlier question about actual building fires.
Correct.
Yes.
And what was it, are we a surround and drown, or are they actively going in? Obviously, depends how the fire looks when you get there. I understand that also.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand what you're asking for. So, a building fire is a broad category. I mean, if it's a grease fire on the stove and the cabinet gets singed, that would be considered a building fire.
Okay. So anything that the firefighter has to go in and hose something.
Yeah.
And last but not least, with that same call-out, how many joint, or how many times does Lewiston Fire Department go to another municipality? Whether it's Sabattis, Turner, Leeds, Auburn, do we have that statistic also? How many times that the joint service or joint?
Mutual aid.
That's what I was trying to say, thank
Yeah.
you, mutual aid. If we can get that figure, what that's looking at. Obviously, in the front page of the paper, just a couple weeks ago, we saw Lewiston firefighters with the ladder on that burning building on Court Street. Just 2 weeks ago, it was in the paper.
Yes.
So it looked good for Lewiston, we're out there.
Yeah.
And I know Auburn comes to us, and just what is our mutual aid situation?
So for building fires only or for all mutual aid?
Just mutual aid for the fire department.
Okay, I can get you that number.
Awesome, thank you.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but what's counterintuitive is that if you're in downtown Auburn, the closest fire station is actually in Lewiston.
Potentially, yes. There's been instances that we have been on scene at their fires first.
Right.
We're not knocking Auburn, we're just trying to
No,
get.
Just explaining. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at the personnel analysis, number of employees. In 2014, you had 71 and a half, and you currently have 78 now, and you want to add 2 more. Could you explain that?
So I think the jump is we added a 4th guy to the ladder truck through contract negotiations, probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe.
Yep.
2017.
And then, of course, we added the 3rd fire inspector through the rental registration program.
And then we made 1 part-time administrative person full-time. That was the other, that was the half to a
half.
full, yes.
Okay, thank you.
With regard to the firefighter schedule, so if a firefighter worked a normal schedule without, the normal, is it 1 on and 2 off?
So their schedule is one day, it's a 24-hour shift, it's 1 on, 2 off, and they do that for 3 shifts, and then they get a Kelly day.
Right. Okay, so if a firefighter worked a normal schedule without covering anyone, with regards to the pay periods, would they get any overtime with their normal schedule?
No, they would get 42 hours of straight pay weekly.
Okay, all right. Further questions from the council? Thank you very much, Chief.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you, Assistant Chief.
And if we could, I'd like to bring up our 911 director.
Please introduce yourself, sir.
Hi, I am Tim Hall. I'm the director of Lewiston Auburn 911.
So before we go into detail, I need to give Tim credit. He has been working a lot of different hats right now because they are short. One of the things that the 911 committee did recently is put into place a mechanism or a pay scale similar to what we had to do with the police officers. So that is going into effect April 1st?
Yes.
And then has, a bump at the first of the year. So I think in 3 days' time, he's had to recalculate all his personal service numbers. And then once we did that, we had to figure out how we were going to pay for it. So I have to give credit to the director there on crunching a lot of numbers for this.
Thank you.
So the 911 was in the packet that we gave you on Tuesday, the memo and the backup of the financials.
Yes, so you're looking at a sheet that looks like this.
So the overall increase is $65,960.
I'm sorry, do you mind saying that again? We were all flipping pages up here.
Yeah, I'll wait till, I think. Go ahead. So, the overall increase is $65,960 or 5.4%. For personal services, there's an increase of $208,631 or 8.92%. This is due to the adjustment of the wage scale, as Heather just mentioned, along with freeze in one dispatch position in fiscal year '24. Regular salaries and overtime rose by $127,496 for regular wages and $32,262 for overtime. Increase in fringe benefits of $48,873, which is a net increase in retirement cost of $14,062, ICMA of $1,124, FICA at $12,222, health insurance at $22,328, health reimbursement at $822, which is offset with a decrease in wellness, medical, workers' comp, and unemployment of $1,686. Contracted services increased $37,509, 20.32%. Increase in utilities and telephone combined total of $10,835. This is attributed to the cost of the Verizon data modems and the First Light fiber VPN and the electricity for the central fire and radio system tower site. Maintenance and license, $26,432. This is due to the IMC software, along with other software contracts increasing. This is offset by the decrease in in-service training of $1,450. This is due to the dispatcher's state mandated training and recertification. Supplies remain flat. Fixed costs increased $1,901 or 5.92%. The dues increased $256 for the NENA and the APCO, and insurance increased $1,645 for the general liability and the auto insurance. The DS had no budget. The two city administrators, the debt service, had no budget. The two city administrators from Lewiston and Auburn have agreed to retain the radio project debt services on a respective municipal side rather than a pass-through. Revenues increased, capital outlay decreased $6,980 due to computer replacements in this current fiscal year of $12,800 will not be needed or budgeted in the fiscal year '24. Offset by an increase in the cellular the rotors for the IMC switch and the DORA access badge increase. Revenues increased $16,686. The increase is support from Town of Poland of $14,434. Tower rental revenues and agency support totaling $2,052. A $200 increase in interest. The 911 committee has a similar fund balance policy as the city with a 6% floor and a 10% ceiling of total expenditures. For fiscal year 2022, unassigned fund balance was at 11.33%. The committee elected to use $125,000 for fiscal year '24. That's an increase of $85,000 of the fund balance to reduce the increase to the two municipalities. To utilize this, it will reduce the fund balance coverage to 6%. Any questions on 911?
Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you. At 911, is that proportional, or is that a split 50-50 between the two cities?
50/50.
Thank you.
And maybe I missed this from last year, but we also take the town of Poland's 911 calls?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So, Tim, do you want to talk a little bit about staffing?
So, staffing challenges in 911 have been around since I entered the business 23 years ago, but I've never seen it like this. At this point, we are functioning at 50% of our staffing levels, and both the operations manager and I are working shifts on the phones and radios to provide the coverage. We've made what reductions we can to our services. Obviously, it's hard to reduce what the 911 center does, but we're actually reducing our staff further. Our on-duty staffing typically would be at least 4 people, 24/7, and then during the day and evening, we would go up to 5 if we were fully staffed. It really should be higher than that, quite honestly. On our evening shift, we will be reducing to 3 dispatchers, and our overnight shift will be reducing to 2. That is going to be extremely difficult for us to do with the current call volume. We have an agreement. The one nice thing about having another 911 center right in the city of Auburn, I know that the discussion occurs every so often about why don't we consolidate the 2 into 1. This is a prime reason why it's good that we haven't, because we have an agreement with them to accept our overflow 911 calls, so that if the two dispatchers on duty at our center are both taking a 911 call, the county center would receive any extra calls coming in at that point. They share a computer-aided dispatch system with us. They can process that call. They can enter that call into the computer. We see it. There's really no delay in response to the community. The community would not know that they were getting the county 911 center. So it's one of the real benefits of having that arrangement between the two of us. We do have 3 people currently in training. We hope that they will be ready to go maybe mid to late May. And we have another one in the process of hiring, maybe another few weeks away from starting with us. The training process typically can take anywhere from 4 to 6 months. So when we lose 6 people in 4 months, it's hard to recover from that. And we were already running short-staffed to begin with, so it's been a painful few months. I have to give credit to the remaining staff that we have. Essentially is 10 full-time dispatchers doing the work of 20, and they're working 70, 80-hour weeks, 16-hour shifts, getting 8 hours off and coming back in for 16 more. And it's unbelievable. They're keeping as positive as they can, and they've been working very hard. So I'm very proud of them, and they're doing an excellent job.
When you said you're reducing staffing levels, you're saying because we don't have enough staff, or that's
Correct.
Oh.
It's simply a matter of not having enough staff. We'll see that be a temporary measure. As soon as we get some of our folks out of training, we will certainly bring those numbers back up as soon as we possibly can.
Great job.
Thank you.
Please thank them for us.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to go over tax increment finance and fund, which is on page 40. It's an overall decrease of $25,972, or 26% reduction. The economic development budget is funded through 50% of the Walmart personal property, a value which is flat funded annually at $353,250. We now capture $24,474 in the Argo TIFF to assist with the funding of the economic development budget. In fiscal year 19, a decision was made not to charge a lump sum fringe benefit to this account, given the recent drain on the reserves. From this point, and this budget continues, the omission of lump sum benefits are not in this TIF. Revenues are contingent
That includes like health insurance and things like that. We're only doing the percentage-based benefits.
Sorry.
You couldn't see the scrunchy face.
Revenues are contingent upon the final tax rate, so these numbers will be adjusted when we get closer. Personal services increased 43,789. This is similar to the utility funds. The TIF budget includes estimated salaries, COLAs, and step increases, 39,739. Percentage-based fringe benefits include the main PERS, which is the retirement, and the FICA remains flat with the change in the personnel allocation to this fund. Contracted and services increased 10,152. Increase in miscellaneous services of 5,300 for the ProTrack Plus. Increase in service training of 5,100. This is a new line for classes in real estate financing. A decrease in mileage and travel of 600 due to the decrease of overnight travel. Supplies increase at 300 to make budget to actual. Fixed costs decrease in 118,854. All debt service is budgeted for TIF-related infrastructure projects here. As a principal is paid off, the requirement decreases. Principal decreased 7,547 and interest decreased 4,922. The credit enhancement of taxes will fluctuate in the final tax rate. Fiscal year 2024, the Walmart TIF expires March 15, 2024. Donations, LA Arts was decreased 10,000. This was due to the current year, fiscal year 2023. Council approved that additional 10,000 following COVID to get back to the programs back online. That's the TIF. Any questions on that?
I will need to highlight something. The Walmart TIF pays for this fund primarily. So with that expiration at the last tax bill for March of next year, if we do not do another TIF that captures for economic development, these costs will need to be absorbed on general fund next year, after next year. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that process.
How long does their TIF run for Walmart?
It's
If you can use the mic.
ran along,
Yeah.
it was a.
It's been a 20-year TIF.
TIF,
It's
yeah.
just come into an expiration at this point. It was
That's
one
how
of
long
the earliest
Walmart's been here.
projects.
Walmart's been here 20 years? So in a sense, once the TIF's gone, they're going to be paying more taxes
They will pay it to general fund.
to general fund.
This shelters those taxes. It shelters them and allows us to capture it. So those taxes and that value do not negatively impact state revenue sharing. They don't negatively impact state aid to education subsidy. So that's why you go through a sheltering process.
And what benefit is it a benefit to Walmart for us to have this TIF?
Not really. From the infrastructure piece, they also have what's known as a credit enhancement portion. That's a benefit to them. That's where part of their taxes are returned to them as part of the incremental increase or that captured assessed value. That is returned to them. So, but that's on the real estate side, not on the personal property side.
And to elaborate just a little bit on that return to Walmart, they took a former gravel pit, and there was a 100-foot grade differential across the site, and so it truly was extraordinary site costs, is what drove that. And when the council evaluated it at the time, they said, this is a project that'll give us enough tax value, enough new jobs, we'll raise rates, and it made sense to the
So
council at the time.
their entire TIF is coming to an end in 2024. So Walmart has a history of going into municipalities and saying that you've appraised us for too much. So I'm assuming we're going to hear from them anytime coming in.
They have already tried that
Okay.
and have not been
Really
extremely successful.
Tried it with us or tried it?
Tried it with us.
Okay.
Because we have a contractual obligation, and that has always been the response that, look, when you did this deal, this is what you agreed to pay,
Okay.
as far as an assessed valuation. But once that's passed, yeah, it's a new game.
I'm,
Right.
yeah, most certain they're going to
I think probably the focus will be on the personal property taxes, because that was written in, and that was one thing that they had highlighted in the past, and we could always hold. From a real estate standpoint, probably not as much.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions from the council?
So, Mr. Mayor and City Council, part of the TIF fund includes funding for LA Arts as a joint agency. So if I could, I'd bring the LA Arts representative up.
Please join us, Dr. Parakilis.
So LA Arts is funded in the TIF.
If
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, if you can, thank you, Director Roy, Administrator Hunter. If you could both introduce yourselves, that'd be great, and please speak into the mic.
Yep.
Elaine Gammon, Vice Chair of LA Arts.
And I'm Jim Parakilis. I'm the chair of the board of LA Arts.
So that was in the packet that you got Tuesday. I gave you the financial piece tonight, right before we started. LA Arts is funded through the TIF fund, as Heather mentioned, and they're requesting $45,000, which is an increase of $10,000. Funding covers the art walk, administration costs, seed money to leverage out grants. LA Arts has requested an additional year of funding of the $10,000 level. This amount is currently not provided in our budget on page 40. The request is to sponsor concert performances. Their revenues increased $9,550, a slight increase in private grants of $5,000, and individual donations at $5,000. Expenses increased $8,150, increase in employee expenses of $16,500, a decrease in non-employee expense, which is performers, of $9,600, and all other expenses such as rent, insurance, and office expenses increased $1,250. Any questions?
Councilor Chalinas.
Thank you. In the memo, I can see, the letter, I can see that you mentioned that, you rely on a grant from Lewiston and along with a similar grant from the City of Auburn. By similar, does that mean equivalent? So you're requesting $45,000 as well from the City of Auburn?
No, the $45,000, $10,000 of that is for a special concert street festival, which would be in Lewiston.
Okay, so you're requesting $35,000.
We're requesting $35,000 from Lewiston and $30,000 from Auburn.
Okay.
If you could probably elaborate a little more, what does Auburn's contribution pay for?
Both of these grants are for operating expenses as well as programming, and it's the programming part is not specified. So we have programs that we do that are in Lewiston, our new office and gallery and performance space is in Lewiston, and our art walk is in Lewiston. We tried several years ago to extend it across the bridge, and it didn't work, and so it is exclusively in Lewiston. And we have a variety of programming that is in Lewiston, such as public art works, and well, we host all kinds of organizations. We are hosting in May a diversity celebration by the Lewiston Youth Advisory Council, and so forth. So there are a lot of events that are very specifically Lewiston focused, and we have actually we're farther behind with Auburn. We are just gearing up. Our support has not been so robust from Auburn for quite a while, and it has suddenly become more robust this past year, or the year that we're in. And so we're working on programming that is Auburn-specific. But obviously, in a sense, we're one community, and people from both cities come to many of our events. I should say that we are we had a very good conversation with the Lewiston administrators who were here this evening, and among other things, they asked us if we would work up some kind of programming in Kennedy Park for the summer. So we have put out a call to all the arts and culture organizations of the city to offer us one program each in a series that we would like to construct to make use of the park.
Particularly the bandstand.
Yeah.
The donations that were raised to rehab the bandstand, obviously some of those individuals have expressed concern that it's not being used as intended. So to try to get more activity into that facility that has been redone and ready to go.
Okay, thank you. That's a great explanation. I appreciate that.
You bet.
I just wanted to say your new space is beautiful. I appreciate that it's being used by many groups and members of the community, and it's just a great community space.
Thank you, and we're very grateful to the City Council for supporting us. Between the two cities, we get half of our funding, and we wouldn't be able to move into that beautiful new space without your support. And I hope you will all come, if you haven't been already, and enjoy events that we put on there, and exhibits.
Further questions from the council?
So, Mr. Mayor, this concludes at least our portion. I'll turn it over to Director Jeffers to review the community development block grant budget.
Thank you both
for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. I am a familiar face to you all, Lincoln Jeffers, Economic and Community Development Director for the city. Pauline Gudis is to my right. She is the longtime chair of the Community Development Block Grant Citizen Advisory Committee. She's been, how many years have you been at this, Pauline?
8.
8, is that all?
If you can, excuse me, Chair Gudis, if you can please use the mic there.
Yeah, she has been a stalwart, really a key member of it. Jessica Wilson is also in the audience. She is a key staff person as well, who's really helped us get to this point. She is the rule maker, I shouldn't say maker, she's the one who keeps us abiding by the rules of this. You have had the good fortune or not, depending on your perspective, I suspect, to have had a lot of HUD regulations come across your desk over the last few years. Rather than my memo really covered that was really intended primarily for audience members who may not be familiar with CDBG, so unless you want me to go through it, I can really just get to the nuts and bolts. I should say that the Citizen Advisory Committee, Councilor Jelinas is also on that committee, has been a great member of that, helping bring some understanding and perspective to it. Abdi Nagay is our immigrant representative, again, longtime member. Caleb Roebuck was new this year. And Andrew Finney, who works for the St. Martin de Poirier, has been the homeless shelter. So it's a pretty diverse group, brings a lot of perspectives to the table. Cutting the chase, we need to support low to moderate income people. The way we have done that historically is to fund public service agencies, which have a 15% cap on what can be used to help them. We've done it to fund rehab programs, both for commercial and residential properties. We have a whole rehabilitation coordinator who runs those programs, writes scopes of services, goes in, evaluates buildings, and we also have the administrative side of the house. Really, where this committee has focused its attention is on evaluating the applications that are made for funding. HUD has limited us to only being allowed to fund 6 agencies, just because of staff capacity, and the rules have only gotten increasingly complex over the last few years. So we had 9 agencies apply for funding this year. We're only able to supply 6. As you look at the spreadsheet that was included in your packages, the scoring is very tight. Out of a group of 30, 7 of them scored at 26, so only a 4-point spread, and then the others were just a couple points behind. So that's really the difficult work that the committee does and wrestles with, and how do we use these dollars to best improve the lives of our citizens, whether it's in public infrastructure or the services provided. Pauline, I'm rambling here, and I always ramble. Is there anything you would like to add as a chair of this?
It was very tough for us to make the decision as to who to fund and who not to fund. I know Councilor Jelinas and I both had a lot of angst about which one gets it and how, do they get the whole amount and what. Every agency that applied really needs the money. But HUD says no, and our committee had a tough time saying no to several agencies that do good work in the community, but there's only so much money, and you're going to have the same thing to do with the citywide budget, so you'll probably understand what we went through. We had to very short amount of time to do the work. The applications aren't just a simple one-page application, it's pretty detailed. We interviewed every agency that applied to try to make the best decision possible, and then came up with what agencies to fund. Several of the agencies provide a very narrow scope of service. Seniors Plus does the Meal on Wheels program, which is really important for the elderly in our community, especially those who are very low income. It provides at least one nutritious meal a day for them, as well as someone checking in on them at least once or twice a week. Trinity, Jubilee, we have funded every single time I've been on the committee. Erin Reed runs a program, and if she were the city administrator, she probably could operate the city at $1 million. This woman gets more. It's unbelievable how she gets. She runs this program, and she used to ask just for $9,000. And last year, because of HUD telling us we couldn't, we're able to give her more. But she does more for what little money she gets from us. It's amazing how she is able to get what she gets for what little money she has to work with. Literacy Volunteers does a lot of good work. They're teaching English and workforce language skills to the new Mainers. That's another good program. New Beginnings deals with youth in the community. So what we funded was a real variety of programs from the elderly to the youth in our community. And I would hope that the council would approve what the committee has recommended for funding.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's fine.
So Trinity, you have the day shelter, resource center, and the food pantry. Those are counted as 2 separate asks.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, just to be clear. Thank you.
Yeah, and I did have that conversation trying to spread the wealth a little bit further with Jessica, who is the one who really needs to review all of the documentation that HUD's required, and they really are very different. Even though it's the same organization, the work they do is very different. The reporting they do is similar, but is different. The beneficiaries. So unfortunately, we cannot count them as one agency. But I did ask, and I was told that was not available. That was not possible. Really, the struggle, we had 3 agencies score at 26, and we couldn't fund all 3 of them, so that was a big part of the debate, which Councilor Jones participated in. and New Beginnings. This council has had, a big focus on homeless youth. This is educational programming for them, help them do it, get out there, become, escape tough situations and really better themselves and be more productive citizens going forward. Safe Voices is getting other funding from other federal sources. We'll have bricks and mortar type asks. That was the one that was not able to be funded just because the limitations and the number of beneficiaries that they serve was significantly smaller than what New Beginnings. And I think that was the driving force behind the decision-making of the committee and their recommendation to you folks. The rest of this is really sort of it's largely, as Director Roy was saying, a lot of what drives this is just the cost of funding staff salaries. As far as the office administration, there is some travel, training, those type things. Some office supplies, but it's mostly bodies. Code enforcement, there's a code enforcement officer specifically targeted that CDBG target area. They're there 100% of the time, helping to improve the quality of the housing stock down there, address issues. Similarly, the rehab program administrator works across a variety, including the lead program. That's and I also put some time on that, as does Jessica. The lead grant match, that is the large federal grant we've got. CDBG is used as a match requirement towards that. We have gone through all the money. We've allocated $50,000 each year for the last 2 years. We're recommending for the third year. I just heard this morning that we're already over budget for where we're at, and so we're already going to be dipping into that. So we think that's an important one to keep. There were 2 public works projects brought forward. One was Vale Street paving and sidewalks at $535,000. Important Street paving and sidewalks, which was $196,000. The work on both is very similar. Both streets are in very bad condition, and so it'd really be putting in new curbing. One's got concrete formed. Yeah, you can tell I'm not a public works guy. One of them's concrete curbs, the other one's granite curbs. New sidewalks, redo the pavement in each of those places, make them suitable. There wasn't enough money left to do both. And so the committee had recommended fully funding Horton Street, and what was left over would be able to be applied to the Vale Street paving. That was about $75,000. And each year there's also, if you go to the second page on this budget, there is $843,459 is the allocation we're getting from the federal government this year. There are contingencies left over from prior years that we put back into the budget. There is a revolving loan program that has a constant source of repayment, so that these are basically people repaying their loans. We don't want the balance in that to get too large, because we're not allowed to have more than 1.5 times what we receive each year on hand, 60 days before the end of the year. And so if that revolving loan balance grows too large, HUD's not happy, and makes us do a lot more reporting, and they want the money out there. That's good. They're a great funder, but they don't want the money just sitting in bank accounts. So we're recommending $200,000 of that revolving loan fund get put back into more active use, and any use of those dollars will come back to the council for approvals. Some of the ones that we know Jessica's been working with that are in the works are Seniors Plus is in the midst of building a new facility, a new kitchen and everything else. It'll also be added at the Raceway Business Park. $175,000 is what their likely ask will be. Safe Voices, as they've started on construction of their shelter, has had some significant cost I shouldn't say overruns, it's just construction costs, as everybody knows, are quite high. That $100,000 that's in here would not fully cover what they're coming up shy on, but they'd be looking for some support. That ask is being matured, and the YWCA has the roof over the pool is leaking, and so I think it's about $14,000 that's being spent right now to develop the scope of services, and we're anticipating to be about $150,000 ask. With that, I'm closing this one down and open for questions.
Councilor Jelinas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to echo a little bit of what Chair Gudis and Director Jeffers spoke about. You know, this is a grueling activity for sure. All 9 of these agencies, programs that came forward are providing very, very needed services. And I'm just going to go on record for Team Jessica for a minute because, you know, part of what was referenced here was the idea that really it's HUD's requirements, increased requirements that require more staff capacity. And so they're the ones that dictate those 6 programs. It's not that every municipality can only do 6 programs. It's based on our own staff capacity to review those. And that, you know, from my point of view as a counselor, is a heartbreaking thing to realize because the money's there. We just can't use it past those 6 programs. And so, you know, that's important for us to think about from a staffing capacity. This gal here, Jessica, is amazing. She did so much work, but she can only do so much work. And I want to highlight that because I don't know that people understand that. Like, when we talk about HUD requirements and staff capacity, but that's ultimately why we had to pick 6 instead of accepting all 9. And just to put sort of a face to, you know, obviously Trinity Jubilee rises to the top. You can see that in this sheet in front of you. You know, in my volunteer work at Trinity Jubilee, I had a situation come up, and I just wanted to share this. And it was, I was working in the food pantry, and, you know, there's donations that are coming in from Bates College that they're using to make meals, and there's donations coming in from Hannaford, and all the while, you know, we're squirreling away a portion of food. And I finally just said, like, why are we doing this? And this was being done in anticipation of the summer when Bates is no longer going to be able to donate. So, you know, you talk, Chair Gudis, about, you know, how that program can make so much out of so little, but to see them in action, to be there, and like I said, during my volunteer time, to be watching that and realizing, like, that's pretty amazing stuff. So I just wanted to put a face to that talk because I think it's just something else. It's marvelous, really, how they do it. Anyway, I just want to say thank you to the work that's been done. It's been, you know, an honor to participate on this committee with you all.
Thank you.
Oh, and I definitely support what's being put forth.
Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Chairperson Gudis and the advisory committee for reviewing all of these and scoring them. I think it's a good mix of programs here, and I would support going forward with this as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Gudis, for chairing this committee. I appreciate your service. Thank you.
I got one more that will be brief, and again, rather
I'm trying to wrap things up.
Yeah,
but
I know
after
you are,
Director
rather than
Jeffers,
burying
after you.
with a lot, we do have, I'm sorry, are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. There's the home budget. That is one that historically Lewiston has used to help support the creation of these large affordable housing projects. We use it to leverage dollars. We'll have a little bit of money going in. This year, the allocation that we will receive is $246,114 beyond what we can use for general administration, and we're recommending that $15,000 of that be used to help people pay their security deposit when they're homeless, and bring some stability to it, and that would be given to them as a grant, which would actually be going to the landlords. And then we've got Gavro Place is on the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet will be refined a bit. The Gavro Place, that project is closed, while the amount that was allocated for actually helping with the construction is a little bit under budget. There are some project delivery costs, which is staff salaries who worked on it. And so we're really looking to finesse. I'm working with finance to see how we can best report that so we don't come up shy. Choice Neighborhood, you folks just approved a $450,000 construction budget to help with that. This budget's showing just $448,000 and change. You know, we could easily make that $450 just by pulling numbers from the bottom up to that, which will reduce it. But again, we need to figure out what the project delivery costs are so we can better budget it. So when this is brought to you for formal action on May 2nd, although those numbers will be there, but that's the basic concept on how we've used this money historically.
Director Jeffers, so didn't we just cover the home budget not too long ago? The home allocation?
That was home ARP. I believe.
Home, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, that's what I'm
thank
saying.
you.
You folks have been buried
Okay.
with federal programs. This is independent. This one can only be used to really help create affordable housing for people. It can be a low-income homeowner. It can, we have done that. It's surprisingly not as well utilized as you would think, and challenging. We basically have said, look, we can put $450,000 into a $30 million project. We get 2 units that are dedicated as home, or 3 units that are dedicated as home units, but you're creating another 75, 80 units. So
No,
that's,
thank you for the clarification.
yep.
Thank you, Administrator Hunter. Councilor LaChapelle.
Would those funds be directed to Director Brackett? Would she be running this?
The support, yes, she's well aware to help with the security deposits.
So it'll just shift over to her department and she
Well,
she would administer it from there?
She hasn't really been, we can talk about it, but I mean, again, the rules and exactly what has to be reported out. So she knows about the funds, she's welcome to apply for them, and basically, we process it, but she feeds it. We've only had one recently. The whole state program, that helped people pay their rents, sort of took the wind out of this, there was just no need. And the state was paying for everybody and everything last year. So that's now wrapped up. We anticipate more demand this year for that security deposit program.
It's an important program because landlords are not going to take people in. And so, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments or questions from the council? Chair Gudis, thank you for serving on the committee. I appreciate it very much. Jessica, thank you very much for your service. And thank you, Director Jeffers. And
Thank you.
Administrator Hunter, I believe, is that it for this evening?
That concludes the meeting tonight, and we will see you next week on Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Sounds great. Good night, Lewiston.
Stephanie, you're closer tonight than we were Tuesday. So